I have some shocking and sad news to report to you. Our generous and talented and beloved colleague, John Saunders, has died. John is one of the most familiar on-air faces at ESPN. You know him. He has been at ESPN for nearly 30 years, covering college football, basketball, the NHL, in addition, of course, to co-hosting this program, SportsCenter, and most recently a fixture on the Sports Reporters. Born in Canada, Saunders was an all-star defenseman in the junior hockey leagues in Montreal before becoming one of the most prominent broadcasters of our day. Also a founding board member of the Jimmy V Foundation, such a critical part of John's legacy and the difference that he has made in this world, all the work that he has done for cancer research, and that foundation named for his longtime college basketball partner. John Saunders was 61 years old. John Skipper, the president of ESPN, co-chairman of the Disney Media Networks, has issued this statement, and I quote, "John was an extraordinary talent, and his friendly, informative style has been a warm welcome to sports fans for decades. His wide range of accomplishments across numerous sports and championship events is among the most impressive this industry has ever seen. More importantly, John was a beloved and devoted family man who cared deeply about people and causes, as evidenced by his long-standing efforts as a passionate board member for the V Foundation for Cancer Research. He was one of the most significant and influential members of the ESPN family, as a colleague and a mentor, and he will be sorely missed. Our thoughts are with his loved ones at this difficult time. John is survived by his wife, Wanda, his two daughters, Aaliyah and Jenna. And our sympathy, love, and support goes out to all of those who loved and respected our colleague, John Saunders.
John Saunders, one of the familiar on-air faces on ESPN for nearly 30 years, has died. Saunders covered college football, basketball, and the NHL for the network, in addition to hosting SportsCenter and most recently, the Sports Reporters. He was born in Canada. Saunders was an all-star defensiveman in junior hockey leagues of Montreal before becoming one of the most prominent broadcasters of his time. He was also a founding board member of the Jimmy V Foundation for Cancer Research, named for his longtime college basketball partner. Saunders was 61. Stephen A., obviously we just heard this news, and I know clearly you're very emotional and close to him. I want to say I'm sorry, and how will you remember John?
I can't, he was a big brother. He's a father figure. I'm sitting here in shock. We just got the news. Thank you. We just got the news. He went to the NABJ last week. I couldn't make it because we were on the road for First Take. I was supposed to see him. We're going to hook up for dinner in a couple of weeks. He had health issues from years ago. Had a bad accident as well, bad fall. He was recuperating throughout the years. Health ebbed and flowed. But somehow, some way, he always had the strength to give guys like myself the level of guidance, that big brother that we all needed. We talk a lot about great individuals that have worked at this company, especially my man Stuart Scott, who I still miss to this day. But I always called John Saunders the Godfather because he was one of the originals. When you think about ESPN, so many times we think about Chris Berman and we think about Dick Vitale as well as we should. Bob Lee, I call individuals like that the institution. Tom Jackson as well. But John Saunders was one of those guys. We worked together on NBA Countdown years ago. We always kept in touch. He always was a mentor and an advisor. He meant so much to me. I'm so incredibly sorry for his family right now and his loved ones. I really don't know what to say. I'm not used to being in this position. Usually you have some time to reflect and things of that nature. I just got the news a couple minutes ago. I'm shocked. I can't believe it. I know how much he loved the sports reporters, being a part of that show. I know how much he loved being a part of the V Foundation in its fight against cancer. I know how much he loved working for this network, this company, Walt Disney, ABC. I don't think anybody truly realizes what we lost today. He was a phenomenal, phenomenal man. He was a father figure. He was a big brother. He was a mentor. He was an advisor. He was somebody that had been in this business for 40 years. He adamantly believed in being a pioneer and paving the way for individuals like myself and so many others, keeping this company's eyes on the prize as it pertained to giving African Americans opportunities in this business and at this company. Stuart Scott might not be here if it were not for John Saunders. Might not have been here had it not been for John Saunders. It's just a devastating loss, and I'm going to miss my brother. I'm going to miss him a lot.
He's such a class act, and he's a staple. And I know, like you, Max, I started at ESPN right out of college at 22. And one of the first shows I ever worked on was College Football Live. And John Saunders was the guy. He was hosting it. And, you know, you're a nervous wreck. You're starting out. And obviously, he's one of the top talent, the big shot. And just in terms of how he ingratiated me, welcomed me, giving me feedback, he didn't need to do that type of thing, and just showing his character. And then when I left here and went to CBS in New York, I worked with his daughter, Aaliyah. And I just know the relationship, how much he adored his daughters, and how much Aaliyah and his sister absolutely adored him. My heart is breaking for them and, you know, for the entire family. And she has a very bright future also in this industry. And, of course, just, yeah, class act. And my own personal interactions with him is he went out of his way for no, you know, when he wasn't getting anything out of it. And those kind of people that really make the difference for us along the way. And it breaks my heart to Stephen, I see you so upset as well, but we lost a legend. We lost a great one in the media industry.
I didn't have that kind of interaction or relationship with him, just in passing through the years. He's the kind of guy that makes this a great place to work. A lot of good people here, and he was one of them. I know you got emotional as soon as it happened, and Stephen A. has kind of been a mess, you know, and been holding it together on the air in the last segment. And that's a tribute, I think, to the kind of man he... It's always strange to refer to someone in the past tense when they just passed, but the kind of man he was, that he has this kind of an emotional impact on, and left that kind of impression on the people with whom he was close. And by the way, a terrific broadcaster.
Of course,
which, you know,
one of the great ones on and off the air.
Yeah.
He could do anything.
No, everything.
He could do anything.
Any sport.
Everything.
Yep.
He loved hockey. You know, he was a proud Canadian.
Yes.
You know, always tried to get me to talk about hockey. Every chance he got, you know, actually I told him there's no chance in hell I can't pull it off. But he was just that guy, and we lost somebody special.
We did, a great one. And I'm sorry, Stephen. John Skipper, president of ESPN, co-chairman of Disney Media Networks, had a statement. I'll share that with you. John was an extraordinary talent, and his friendly, informative style has been a warm welcome to sports fans for decades. His wide range of accomplishments across numerous sports and championship events is among the most impressive this industry has ever seen. More importantly, John was a beloved and devoted family man who cared deeply about people and causes, as evidenced by his long-standing efforts as a passionate board member for the V Foundation for Cancer Research. He was one of the most significant and influential members of the ESPN family as a colleague and mentor, and he will be sorely missed. Our thoughts are with his loved ones at this extremely difficult time. John Saunders has passed at the age of 61.
What's your remembrances of John Saunders?
Well, he was a father figure to me. We were very close. I arrived at ESPN in October of 2003, and whatever went on in my life, he was always there. Didn't matter whether it was work-related, personal, or whatever the case may be. We spoke all the time. We met for dinner on several occasions. And he was just, you're a young man in this business, particularly an African American, and you see a guy like him who was in this business for 40 years, incredibly experienced, consummate professional, knew his job, knew how to do it very, very well, had a lot of big assignments. He just gave you the whole gamut. He guided you through the terrain, talked to you about your emotions, talked to you about your approach, your presentation, how to carry yourself, the kind of man that, you got to ask yourself what kind of man you want to be. And he talked to you not just about the profession, but about life. And, to just think back to my career, and, Stuart Scott was so instrumental to me. He was a dear friend of ours, but there would have been no Stuart Scott at ESPN if there wasn't somebody like John Saunders paving the way. And so, I got the news when I was on First Take, on the set. And first time in my career I was on television, and I didn't want to be there. Don't really want to be here now. Don't want to go to radio.
I know.
It's just hard to put into words what he meant to me. And it's a devastating loss. And I thought that, he was battling those health issues for quite some time. And after he had his bad fall back in 2011 in particular, and you just thought he fought through. He was at the NABJ conference last week. I was supposed to see him there, but First Take was on the road. And he and I made, we were talking about meeting for dinner in the next week or two. And then you hear this, and just reminds you of how precious life is. And people that you love the most, unfortunately, sometimes are the ones that you have to say goodbye to.
We've said it quite a few times during this program, talking about how he was a mentor, and you mentioned how he was a mentor to you. How much did that role mean to him?
It meant everything to him.
Yeah.
It meant just as much to him as anything but his family. Nobody came before his family, obviously. His lovely wife, Wanda, his two daughters, Leah and Jenna. I mean, nobody meant more to him than them. He loved being a Canadian. He was proud of it. And, he was like, I'm not an American, I'm a Canadian. He loved his hockey. Used to get on me all the time because, not only did I not know anything about hockey, I wasn't interested in knowing anything about hockey.
Look at this.
And
That's when he was happiest, right there.
That's when he absolutely loved it. But I don't know if guys remember, because you hear so many people talking about Charles Barkley and the folks on TNT, and deference and respect to those great guys. I know them all. But we were certainly right there neck and neck with them when John Saunders was hosting NBA shoot-around. It was myself, it was Tim Legler, it was Greg Anthony, and John Saunders is the host. And Mike McQuaid, one of the bosses here at SportsCenter, was the producer of that show. And we were rolling. We had the time of our lives. I remember one time McQuaid in concert with John Saunders and played a huge trick on me. I came and I got stuck in New York traffic. But I got there on time, and they were acting like John Saunders was late. And so you're talking about me, and I just came into the business, and this is like a few months in. I'm a complete novice, and Mike McQuaid rolls up on me and says, "You're going to have to host the show tonight." I was like, what? What are you talking about? My eyes popped out of my head. I'm panicking. I'm nervous, or whatever the case may be. And then the next thing you know, John Saunders came in laughing at me because, it was a joke that they had all played or whatever. He was going to make it on time. He was going to be there. But we were there together when...
He loved to laugh.
He loved to laugh. He laughed a lot at you. He loved making jokes, cracking jokes on you. But he was just a fantastic person. And for somebody like myself, to know what he knows about this business, the kind of things that you run through, the kind of problems you run into, the guidance, the support. He wasn't just knowledgeable. He was conscientious. He cared. He cared about people. He cared about issues. He cared about so many different things. And he was going to demand that if you were around him, you had that kind of conscience, you had that kind of heart yourself.
Yeah.
If you didn't have it, you were going to get it being around him, because he was not going to have it any other way.
He'll be missed for sure. We showed the tweet from Western Michigan that he played one game for Western Michigan hockey, but he always gave a tremendous amount of support to the program. Rest in peace, John. And there's another picture of John and his dear friend Dick Vitale. Stephen A., I know this isn't easy for you. I know it was tough, but thanks for stopping by. and being on the show that John loved so dearly.
Yes, he did.
SportsCenter.
He loved himself some SportsCenter.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
He'd be smiling that you came by to spend some time with us.
Or he would have beat me up
Thanks.
if I hadn't.
He definitely would have done that. Stephen A., thanks.
All right.
Let's bring in Michael Eaves. He's our colleague here at ESPN. He's, of course, in Rio covering the 2016 Summer Olympics. Michael, tell us and the audience what John Saunders meant to you. You had a relationship with John.
Yeah, I did. And Stephen just mentioned that he was a father figure to him. He knew John longer than I did, but in the same sense of me aspiring to be a sports broadcaster, John Saunders was that father figure for me in sports television. You know, a little black kid growing up in a small town, White Plains, Kentucky. You didn't see a lot of examples either locally or nationally that gave you the belief that you could become something greater than what you saw in your everyday surroundings. But when I saw John Saunders on Sports Reporters, when I saw John Saunders doing play-by-play on college basketball and hosting NBA studio shows, it gave me the belief that I could do it as well. And we didn't have a very tight relationship through the years. We would say hello to each other in passing because we worked for different networks at the time, but we could always say hello, and I would say hello and go on about my business. But we had our first meaningful conversation at the ESPYs a couple of weeks ago in Los Angeles, and when he said to me that when he saw me on television, he made up his mind that I was someone that he was determined to have a relationship with. Now, saying that to me blew me away because, you know, John Saunders is one of the greatest sportscasters, one of the most classy people we've ever had in this entire industry. So for him to point me out as someone that he'd want to be close to, that meant the world to me. And we said that once I got back from Rio from covering the Olympics that we were going to have lunch. I've never been more sad to miss a lunch than the one I won't have with John Saunders.
Yeah, Michael, I know that he would have very much looked forward to that as well. We've talked about his role as a mentor, and Al, I'm sad too for you that you didn't get the
Never got a chance to
opportunity
meet him.
to meet with him, because you talk about getting sound advice. Every time John Saunders gave me any bit of advice, I didn't just file it away. It was something that was always front of mind, because here was a guy who I'd watched and had the pleasure of getting to know, tell me things and little nuggets about the profession. It really is one of those times where it's like talking to Joe DiMaggio about hitting.
Sure.
You don't forget about that.
Right.
And when John gave me advice, it was always top of mind. Michael Eaves, thank you so much for joining us from Rio. We have a couple of other tweets, and guys, I don't know if we have these available right now, but Kentucky basketball coach John Calipari tweeted this out today. He said, one of the giants of sports and a good friend, John Saunders, died today. I just saw John a month ago, so I'm totally shocked and saddened. John was one of the kindest men I've ever met. And this was the part, Elle, that really stuck out to me, because this is so true. He was a true giver. My thoughts and prayers are with his family.
Doesn't that say a lot
giver.
about who he was? So fantastic as a broadcaster, but all anyone's talking about is who he was as a man, which is just as important.
Helping others was more important than helping himself.
Generous. Keep hearing that word.
John, you'll be missed. More SportsCenter after this.